Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. This is the third webinar of the ninth season of the PhD and Career Development MOOC, and it will also be our only webinar in English this year. My name is Bene, and I will be your host tonight. I also have with me Daphne, Sarah, and Eva from the PhDOOC Association. They're monitoring the chat on YouTube, and so if you have any questions, please post them in the chat on YouTube, and they'll queue them for me. And thank you so much, Daphne, Sarah, and Eva, for doing this for me. And tonight we're very honored to have Sarah Blackford with us. Good evening, Sarah.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And so I think it would be helpful for our participants if you could briefly introduce yourself. Feel free to
Uh,
share your slides if you
yeah,
want.
certainly. I'll start showing my slides, shall I? And that'll be a
Sure.
good starting point. Okay, so hopefully you can see that okay. So there's our introduction slide, exploring careers by design and by serendipity. Yes, I'm a freelance career consultant and I specialize working with PhDs and postdocs. I've been working in the field doing this for over 25 years now, having started in research and always worked within the university system. And so I've got qualifications and affiliations, etc. As you can see on the slide there, I won't go through it in great detail, but I am from the biosciences, but I work across all disciplines. And I deliver workshops and one-to-one career consultancy. And I work in person, and also, as I am this evening, I work online. So it's lovely to be here, and thank you for the invitation, Benny.
Of course. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you with us because you have a lot of experience working with PhDs. You've been in this field for a bunch of years now. And the field is currently changing actually rather drastically because of generative AI. And it's really kind of a new tool in our toolbox when it comes to exploring careers, editing resumes, applying for jobs, and so on. And so this is all great news. And I hope that tonight you'll help us make sure that we get the relevant information so that we can use Gen AI in a very relevant way. This webinar is a nice transition for MOOC participants from the second unit to the third unit. That third unit will open tomorrow and will focus on creating a career plan. And actually, speaking of the MOOC, I would like to spend some time reviewing some of the survey results that were done and shared in the second unit. The question was, could you name three skills or competencies that you have acquired since the beginning of your PhD? And we had about 600 people, a bit more than 600 people reply. And overall, about 60% of participants said that they knew what the skills were and had a way of providing evidence for those skills. 20% said they knew what their skills were, but couldn't really know how to provide evidence for those. And about 20% said that it was not very clear and that they couldn't really get a sense of what their skills were or how to provide evidence for them. So I hope that by now all of our participants have a clearer sense of what skills and competencies are and how they can illustrate them in their application documents and maybe during interviews. But that's enough about the MOOC. I would like to let you do a bit more of the talking now, Sarah. The topic of tonight's webinar is about leveraging creativity and serendipity to make career decisions. And so I know that you've prepared a great presentation to help us think about how we can use social media, and as well as a bunch of other tools, including AI. So could you please start us off by telling us where one can start their career exploration journey? And would you like to take us through some of key career planning steps?
Yes, it will be a pleasure. Thank you, Benny. And yes, AI is our new friend, our new tool. But as I say to people, it's only your assistant, and we must step tentatively when using it, especially with things like writing a CV, etc. But today is all about exploring careers. And just to give you the aims and learning outcomes from the session today is thinking through about making your career plan and your career approach more creative and using these new tools such as, well, it's not really new, but actually harnessing social media in a meaningful way to help you with your career and also AI. And so by the end of this module, this session today, hopefully you'll be more knowledgeable about how to be able to identify and analyze your skills and interests, which is very pertinent now since the survey shows that some people are not finding this as easy as others. And then how you might use this to create an online profile, how to research organizations, how to look at the different types of careers and roles that might be associated with careers that you're thinking about, things that maybe you haven't actually thought of up till now, and then how to network and conduct an informational interview so that you can then harness your network and start connecting to people, reaching out and expanding your network and community. So, just to go back to this idea of design or serendipity, what I mean is it planned or is it unplanned? And both are true of career. And I just want to illustrate this by showing you this little grammar point here. Career, when you say a career and you talk about it as a noun, can be defined in a dictionary as a course of progress through life. So it seems very planned, very much under your control. Whereas a career around as a verb is identified as moving in an uncontrolled way. So you can see how career collides with each other. You know, the two sides of the career planning. And this is really true when you think about your PhD as well. You have a plan, you are aiming for a goal, but it's very likely that unexpected things will happen and you'll have to navigate around them. You'll have to be resourceful. You'll have to be creative and innovative in order to get to your goal. And it may not be the goal that you set out for in the first place. And you may end up in a more interesting place. But that's the idea of this design and serendipity. So let's ask you a question. So you're in your career already. You decided to do a PhD. Why did you decide to do that PhD? Why did you decide to do it? Where you're doing it? On what sort of topic, etc. Lots and lots of questions there to get you to think back and reflect what or who has influenced in your career so far, and not just doing your PhD, but before that as well. So all these career planning activities have been going on already. And I don't want to overwhelm you with a bit of a complex infographic here, but it's been created by Patton and McMahon. I've just referenced them down there. And if you just break it down into three parts, you'll see at the center of this is you. And so you are being influenced by lots of different factors that are within you and are under your controls. Well, some of them are and some of them aren't, but getting a qualification, for example. What are your aptitudes? What are your skills? What's your abilities, your personality? What's your knowledge of the world of work? You know, all the different things that your age, your gender, your ethnicity, all these things can influence you in what you want to do with your career. And then around that, you'll see there are these blue circles here, and you think about your education because obviously, as a PhD qualified person, you'll be going for more senior professional type positions. There's your community. The people who are in your family, the people in your friends, where you live, but also in your working community, your supervisor, your peers, your workplace. All these things will be influencing you as well. And then beyond that are things that really aren't in your control at all. These are things that you have to flex and adapt to, such as the socioeconomic status of your country or wherever you're living at the moment, the politics, the employment market. We had the pandemic. You know, all these factors are not under your control. And these yellow sort of lightning strikes, these are the unplanned events that happen. And many of you may already be in a career because unexpected happenings have brought you to where you are now. And so you've had to make those decisions. And these decisions and these influences have happened in the past, they're happening now in the present, and they will happen in the future. And these influences will change as you go through your career. So, what is under your control? Let's go back to our model again and just look at the center. And I'm just going to focus on interests and skills because this is what employers look for when they're advertising positions or when they're asking for particular requirements or having an interview. They're testing your skills and your interests. And again, it fits very well, very nicely with the survey that PhDOOC did recently. So let me just show you the more direct skills that you will be acquiring. So you're getting your specialist knowledge and your research methodologies that are creating the data that will then produce the publications. And as you grow in your career, you'll get better known in the field. You'll be collaborating. Maybe you're doing teaching, supervising, research associated activities such as organizing events, science communication and outreach, all those kind of activities. But what you may not think about is all these other things that you're doing where you're using skills in order to help your PhD, go along smoothly. So you're going to have to be communicating with lots of different people. You're having to be resourceful and problem solve because you can't delegate to anybody. And you'll have these great critical analysis skills. You'll have great questioning skills and writing and all these things that you're developing while you're doing your PhD that you're probably not aware of. When I work with PhDs and postdoctoral researchers, I find that they take these skills for granted because everybody's doing them, but actually they are very much sought after by employers. So there's this directly, and then there's the indirectly relevant skills. Okay, so if you're having trouble thinking about your skills, you can ask AI to create some skills and attributes that you can pick from. So, if you can't think of any or you're having difficulty, it's a nice prompt, to fill that blank piece of paper and then just choose some and think, well, how could I think of an example of where I've used my analytical skills or where I've used my sequencing skills or my organizational skills, etc. The other way you can do this is you could give it your CV even and say, can you identify some values and personal attributes from my CV? So again, I have to put the health warning in when I'm doing this because I've said at the bottom here, note that a personal analysis or helping you to identify those skills with a coach is always the best thing. But, if we've got this tool, let's use it. But we'll use it carefully and tentatively. Um, so that leads me on to you then being able to create a pitch or an online profile of some kind. So people are always talking about, oh, I need to have a profile on my CV, or I need to think about how I'm going to present myself. If someone says, oh, well, what are you doing, or what's important to you in your career? So I've made a list here of what strengths I think are important to focus in on. And I've used myself as an example here, but we'll move on to you in a minute. But just to demonstrate this, think about what your key knowledge and expertise is, first of all. I've said it's career guidance and coaching. I've also done a lot of science communication and science policy, but I'm not going to put that into my profile because it would be confusing for people because they wouldn't really know who I am. And that might be true if you're in a PhD and you're thinking of moving into industry, and there may be certain things that you put in and then you leave out. So don't think you must put everything in. What I'm good at and renowned for, well, I am a coach, I am a careers advisor, but I specialize in working with researchers. So I'm drilling down a little bit. My skills and achievements, I worked in research many decades ago and published some scientific papers. But again, they are not relevant to what I'm trying to portray in my profile. So I've only focused on things I've done recently. And then my passions, again, it's okay to be quite personal, especially on some social media platforms, but just be careful about, how you look, how you're perceived. And so, if you're putting in personal information, just be, a little bit tentative about that. I like outdoor walking, I like salsa dancing, but I don't put that in my LinkedIn profile. But I might have put it in my Twitter profile, and I'm moving into Blue Sky now, so I've got to think of a new profile for that. So when I look at my keywords, I think, well, these are what my keywords are. So what would you identify as your keywords? And again, you could use your CV and you could ask, AI to find you some keywords if you couldn't think of any. So then you can go back to AI and say, look, these are my keywords. Can you create me a superpower? And here I am, an empowering connector. So, you can have a bit of fun with it and, just play around with it, see what it comes up with, and then pick out the bits that you think are best suited to you, and then put it into your own words. So, this is only a prompt, and people are getting very used to AI scripts and texts pitching up in their applications now. So it's important always, to be able to just use it as a prompt and an assistant. And I created an online profile recently using one of these image creators as well on AI. And I think it's been quite kind to me, shall we say. I had to do it a few times to get even this image here. But again, these are things, if you don't feel comfortable having an online profile with your own picture, instead of having just a blank, create something like this instead. And then again, what I've done here is I've put my CV, or not my CV, I've put in a CV of a PhD student into the AI. And using the prompt, I've asked it to highlight my academic research and technical skills. So what it's done in 100 words is create this profile that talks about my functional skills, my publications, guiding students, and so on. So that's relevant for academia. But here, you'll see here on the left-hand side again in that box, I've said I am interested in highlighting my research and interpersonal skills. So from the same CV, the AI assistant has actually focused in on things like innovative projects, collaboration, project management, strong communication skills. So you could put those two together even and create your own profile depending on what your job description is asking for, what kind of job you want to do, and how important these skills are to highlight. So I'll just finish this little section here just by saying that, it's only a starting point to use AI. It's always good to review and look at other people's profiles to help you get a feel for what other people are writing about. And you should mimic the language of your chosen career sector. So everyone has a language that they use in their own communities. You'll have yours in academia. And if you're moving out of academia, you have to just slightly change that a little bit, like you would if you went to talk to a public audience or even to students, etc. And remember that your profile will change over time, as does your CV. So try to move it with the times and keep it as up to date, because it is your window on the world. So that's the end of our first section. So I will ask Benny if there are any questions or comments at this point.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. I really like the way you explained how we can use AI to kind of reflect on what we've done so far and then use it to create pitches or to create helpful, maybe description or summary sections in our resumes and LinkedIn. We actually have two questions,
Okay.
and the two questions focus on soft skills, quote unquote.
Hmm.
The first question is from Jane Abu, who is asking whether, in your opinion, soft skills can be learned or acquired. And kind of related to that, Solène is asking whether soft skills can actually make the difference between two PhD students with a similar background.
Yeah, I think if you are thinking of leaving academia and going into industry or business, definitely they are looking for soft skills because you will have to interact with a lot of different people. You'll also be part of a team, and you might even have to show potential leadership skills, etc. So I think they would be an advantage, especially outside of academia, I would say. And soft skills can be learned. And I would say get involved, do other things in and around your PhD. So you've got your core project, but you've also got these outlying areas where you could be, getting involved in organizing things or communication activities. There's so many things you can get involved with, and it doesn't have to be in your department either. It could be outside. It could be in a learning society. It could be voluntary working and doing all sorts of other things, and do something you really enjoy. And then you'll find which soft skills you like using the most. And that then gives you clues to what kind of career might be suited to you.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that's what's so nice with soft skills, right? They're kind of linked to our personality and our own, um,
Yeah,
not aspirations, but like the way we function. So in the end, I think we kind of have a unique combination of soft skills. Don't know what you think.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. And I really like the way you encourage people to use AI actually as a reflective tool, right? You could use it as a reflective tool to like kind of explain how you manage specific projects or how you approach certain situations. It could help you communicate and really name very specific soft skills as well.
Yes,
Um,
and that's a good point. You need to be quite specific, especially when you're, making applications. Yes.
yeah. Nice. Thank you so much, Sarah. So I think so far we've been talking more about kind of the self, right? Really reflecting on our skills, what we bring to the world. And maybe now we can see how we can actually explore career options, right? So really trying and understand the world around us. And I don't know if you have any tips for us on how to research organizations or how to explore career areas. And if you have any tips on how to use Gen AI to do that.
Absolutely, Bene. I'd be happy to demonstrate a few examples here. So let's move on and focusing there on my skills and my interests. Let's take it a step further now and think about what I said before. What do I enjoy doing? And how does this relate to my career choice? Are they compatible? Are you just thinking about your knowledge and your disciplinary interests, or are you thinking about what you're actually doing day to day and how you're interacting with people? Because that's what you're doing every day and you want to enjoy it. So it's good to use examples either from your PhD or maybe it's from other things that you're doing that you get pleasure, and that is a clue to what you might want to do next. And then think, well, who does this kind of work? How can I research that? And is there anything I can develop further, as you've been talking about here about developing soft skills, etc.? And how can I just basically find out more? So, you've got an idea of the kind of skills and interests that you might want to take forward, but let's see if we can connect market. You've got to think, well, what information do I need to know that's going to help me to be better informed? The more knowledge you have, the more powerful you are in a sense, the more powerful as a job applicant or a job seeker. So, what jobs are out there? World of work knowledge, what is available? Job titles are very eclectic these days. People make up all sorts of titles for their job in their companies. And so it's quite hard to find keywords. Who are the employers? The large employers are very visible, but there is a multitude of small companies called SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises of less than 250 people, and they don't always advertise, and nor do the bigger companies. So, how can I get access to these jobs, and what other careers are related to these jobs as well? And what skills and experience do I need? And do I have those skills? And who's working in this? And what do they do, etc. We can go on and on here, but you can see, and as a researcher, I think, you need to put your research skills to work. And, you are trained as a researcher. So you've got these great research skills, analytical, critical thinking, etc. So let's apply it to the job market. But before we do, think about the idea that one size does not fit all. So your job seeking strategy will be different depending on what your career goals are. So once you've got an idea about what you want to do, you will need to go into these transition areas here. So if you're a PhD student or a researcher, you have to cross this transition zone to get to these new careers. And what you do in there will vary according to what job you want to do. I've just used those examples, but you've got to think, are jobs available now and in the future? Do they suit me? Do I have the skills? And how am I going to access? Some you have to apply through a proper scheme, a management scheme. Others you have to do a voluntary or create a portfolio or get more skills. Everybody's got a different way in. And then how are you going to present yourself differently in a CV, depending on the job, your online profile, and your own career development? You only have a limited amount of time when you're doing a PhD. So if you're going to develop yourself and get some more experiences, you want them to be relevant, if you can, to the career of interest. So you can use all sorts of strategies. So you can look at advertised vacancies, but this is very limited, and there might be thousands of people seeing those very high profile vacancies, and really you're limiting yourself. That's not to say you can't do that, but think about other things as well. So check out company websites, but they do tend to be a bit static. So think about your own network and colleagues and people that you can speak to and connect with specialist organizations, and use social media, because social media is much, much more dynamic and in the here and now. And I've mentioned LinkedIn and ResearchGate there. Use AI and be visible. Don't hide in a dark cupboard somewhere, because nobody will know you exist, and everyone will know about other people who are more visible. So you need to make yourself visible, and it doesn't have to be really overt, but just to be able to put your head above the parapet a little bit so that people can see you. And social media is a fantastic place to do this. And I've, written there the key ones. There's others as well, like Instagram. But I'm going to focus really on LinkedIn more than anything, because I think in the past, I would say that academics didn't really go on LinkedIn very much, but now it's really populated by everyone. And what I would say is I see it as a people knowledge database. So you have the web of knowledge. This is the web of people and professions. And so it's a great engagement tool. And the way I would say you can use it is to there's four key areas. So think about your career development needs first. So here, and then you can contribute. You can contribute posts. You can tell people about things that are going on. PhDOOC has been posting about this session tonight, and other people have been liking it and making comments. So you can curate other people's posts as well. You can comment on them, you can like them, and just again, you come onto people's radars then, and then you can learn about lots of different things going on as well, things that you wouldn't necessarily have heard about, latest news. Companies and organizations have a profile on LinkedIn and they're posting their news as well. So you can investigate those organizations and then you can link with people. So this is the thing I think people always think, oh, I've got to link with people, I've got to connect with people. It's kind of the last thing you do, really. And then you don't need to leverage your network immediately. You can just connect with people. And then if you find someone you think is of particular interest, then you might think about taking it a little bit further, but we'll cover that in a minute. But I just want to show you here that all I did was I went into the LinkedIn and I just looked for PhD students under people and France, and I came up with 84,000 results. So there's 84,000 PhD students on LinkedIn and probably more as well. So, you know, you're not alone if you go on there. This is a very common thing to do. And here I thought I'd just highlight the fact that PhDOOC is on LinkedIn as well. And you can use it as a search tool. So here I've put in a research scientist, and look what I've come up with 691 results of people who are a research scientist and who were previously at the IGBMC in Strasbourg. And so what I've done is I've found alumni, people who used to do a PhD, who are now in these jobs. So now you can see if you're interested in doing research in industry, you can go and have a look at some of these people and see, if you were a PhD student from IGBMC, you could make a connection with them because you have something in common. So think about where you're doing your PhD or even from before when you were doing your master's and put in your past company. This is the filter. On the search engine in LinkedIn, you just find the past company and you put in your university there, and then you will find all the people who are a research scientist or whatever other role you're interested in who will be alumni of your institution. So here we are. We've got these 54 results now from the alumni, the actual alumni here, and I'm just going to focus in on one of the people. So I thought it was quite interesting, this EDQM. Let's see what Anna's doing as a study director here in Strasbourg. And so here she's PhD, diploma in engineering. She's implementing cutting edge approaches. She's doing disease modeling, translational pharmacology. Now, if that was something of interest to you, you might reach out to her and look at what her background is. She was a senior research scientist. She was a postdoc at the IGBMC, and she might be somebody good to connect with. And well, I'll show you how to write an email or connect with somebody later on, and how you might conduct some kind of an informational interview with somebody. But look, you can also look at the organization that she's working with there. And also, they have jobs that they're advertising. And when I looked in their jobs, they actually only have one job available at the time. So it is a bit limited. But what is really useful is if you look at the people that are working there, and not only can you then see who these people are, you can look at their job titles as well. And you can think, oh, actually, I didn't know that job title existed, or I didn't know anything about that. And then you could start doing a search. Oh, I'll do a search on scientific program manager now because that sounds interesting. And I'll find people who are doing that role. And that might then lead to something else and something else. So you can, take this as far as you want to take it, but using your research skills, writing things down, being analytical about it and considering these options. And also, the other thing is that I said to you that websites tend to be a little bit static. But when you see people posting on the social media sites, it's much more up to date, it's much more in the moment. And you can like these things and then they might see you or you can connect with them. So you're making tentative advances. And, it's really made networking very democratic in a sense, that you don't have to be in the physical place. You can still be reaching out to people from across the globe. And of course, you can also post your own information. As I said, you can put your own stuff up there. And here we have Sorab Tak. He was a PhD student and he went off into innovation. And look, he's had so many likes and comments here. Again, that's how you start to increase your visibility. And here, look, somebody who has posted about their latest publication. So if you're going to a conference or you're about to publish, these are a great opportunity for you to spread the good news. So it's very academic on LinkedIn nowadays. And you can see here, he's got lots of different titles. So you don't just have to say that you are a PhD researcher, put in what you're interested in as well, so that it makes you stand out from the crowd. So obviously you want to connect with people. And I said, I am going to talk about that, but not quite yet, because I just want to talk about AI very quickly. So I've been using ChatGPT, but there's Copilot, there's Claude, there's a new one, there's a new kid on the block just yesterday. So these things are going to be evolving all the time, but I think they basically create the same kind of results and you can use them in the same way. So here I'm saying that I'm interested in jobs where I can use my interest in cell biology in a problem solving capacity. I want jobs which require a PhD and I have well developed analytical skills. Can you suggest 10 roles that might suit me? Of course. So it's very chatty. Um, so here we have 3 biotechnology research scientists, academic researcher, medical science liaison. This may not be the area that you're interested in. So I'm not going into detail. I'm just showing you that it comes up with all these great job titles. So you get a little bit of a description as well. And then I've said, oh, thank you very much. I'm quite interested in this biotechnology consultant. Can you give me more information about it? So there we go, telling you about what you would do as a biotechnology consultant here, all the different main tasks that you would need to do. And then from there, I've said, oh, well, can you give me 10 examples of large companies and 10 small companies? This is this SME that I mentioned to you with less than 250 employees based in France. So you can say whatever you want here. Certainly, here are some examples. So you have probably heard of Sanofi, and you may have heard of a lot of the other larger companies. So again, lots of attention is paid to these companies, but even so, you may not have heard of them, and probably certainly wouldn't have heard of the small companies. Here we have ones like Tree Frog Therapeutics and Matt Pharma, etc. So, this is really very interesting because then what you can do is we'll focus on Tree Frog for a minute. You go back then to the social media, you go back to LinkedIn. And what you can do then is you can go and look them up on LinkedIn. You can see what they're talking about, what they're doing, what there's this information here about post jobs, live people. I clicked on people. Oh, these are the people that are working there and the kind of roles that they are in, and then you can go back to the social media slides that I showed you, and you can maybe have a look and see how you might connect with these people, or you might want to do some more research. You might do a new research on different types of roles. So it's all there. It's just a case of being a bit creative with your research searching. And of course, I'm only giving you a snapshot, and I'm sure as researchers, you're thinking already, oh, and you could use it for this and you could use it for that. So, that this research and this creative job search is always more rewarding. You will get far more results. It's about quality versus quantity. If you fire out lots of very generic applications, you don't do your homework properly, you won't necessarily get called for interview. Even if you are called for interview, you would have had to have done that research to be able to answer questions like why are you applying for this job, what interests you about our company, etc. So you'll still need to use these research sources. So while you're doing this, remember to make notes while you're doing all this research and analyze. Keep a folder, keep something online, whatever you use to collect your data, and reflect and review it and take action. So, you just do your homework first before you make your move. So that's my researching job opportunities section. So again, Bennett, are there any questions associated with this section?
Yes, Sarah, thank you so much. It was very rich, very detailed, but also I think very clear and helpful. And I just want to say before moving to the questions that if folks are feeling a bit overwhelmed, don't
Yes.
worry because in the Unit 3, you'll have the opportunity to create a career plan. And so you'll be able to order all these different strategies and all these different things that you want to do to move on from where you are now to where you want to be. And hopefully it will be less daunting. Um, if that's where you are right now. We
Mm.
do have a question from Mason or Maison. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. Who's asking when do you think a PhD student should start looking and applying for a job? I think they're concerned about whether they have to wait until they finish their thesis defense or if they have to do it in the last year of their PhD. So they're trying to find out what the best time is.
Well, that's a very good question. It depends, really. I would say that doing this kind of research and looking around, it's never too early to do this. Just to be keeping an eye out, because as I said before, depending on what kind of job you want to do, you could be getting extra experience. You could be going on online courses. You could be volunteering, getting involved in things and building up your portfolio, whatever it is, so that you've got more than just your PhD to put onto your CV. But of course, if you're going for academic positions, postdoctoral positions, then it may be that you want to really focus on your investigative and on your functional skills, go and do some lab visits, go on field courses, go to conferences. It really depends. And I think if you're applying for academic positions, you can easily start contacting potential new supervisors, 6 months, even more if you see somebody at conference, because they have to apply for funding. So if they've got somebody who's very enthusiastic and would make a great postdoc in their research group, they're going to be very happy to start applying for funding and looking far ahead. Whereas if you're applying for a company, unless it's a graduate scheme, they tend to employ on an ongoing basis. So, you wouldn't necessarily apply that early, but I wouldn't wait until you've had your thesis, had your defense. I would say, while you're waiting or while you're writing up, you could be applying and saying, I'm about to submit my thesis, in the next month or so, and I'm looking to, apply and get a position in this role, and I'm very interested in your organization. So I think that's the difference of people tend not to plan so far ahead outside of academia But apart from these graduate schemes that sometimes are run, you can do a postdoc in a company, in one of these big companies. Like they will bring in people on a yearly basis.
Yeah, those are all very helpful tips. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sarah. Um, at the same time, exploring career options, building a network, maintaining relationships takes a long time. So, as you
yeah,
said, I agree
exactly.
with you that you shouldn't wait until you're about to defend first because you're going to be very busy at that point, and also because it might be a bit stressful to do everything at once.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can be making your connections, just do it on a, ongoing basis and don't be fearful of networking because, I always think of PhD students and postdocs are like the powerhouse, aren't they, of the university or the institution. You're creating the data, you're creating the knowledge, you're being able to use all these amazing techniques and methodologies and learning all the time. And it's amazing what you do. And as I say, you take it for granted. People will want to talk to you. You are the future.
Nice.
Yeah.
Some encouragement there. Um, so we've talked a lot about how to explore career areas. And I know you have some more tips to help people move closer to landing a job, move closer to, uh, narrowing down their career options and actually applying and then starting to interview and land a job. So I'll let you move on to the last part of your talk.
Yeah, thanks, Benny. So, yes, networking to net a job. So, again, we're going back to this idea of interconnecting with people and, just getting to know people in whatever communities that you think are interesting for you. So, if you're in academia and you're wanting to get into industry or business, then, you need to be, stepping into that community to get to know your potential new colleagues. But the golden rule, I would say, for networking is do not ask for a job. What you're aiming to do is build relationships with people. If you ask for a job, it's a kind of yes, no, isn't it? And they may not have the capacity to be able to give you a job. And then it's embarrassing, isn't it? And the whole thing shuts down and it's quite negative. But if you're just showing interest, then that is the best way to take things forward step by step. So let's have a look at this building relationships, which was created by David Winter, who is in the London Careers Group in London, would you believe? And they've got a really nice model here, which gives you a stepwise uh, pathway to building a relationship. So answers first, then advice, then assistance, then advocacy, then alliance. So you can see the relationships getting more and more intense as you go along. So what they mean by this is here. So if you look on the left-hand side of this table, so about asking. So it could just be, can I link with you? That's enough. You don't want to bombard somebody with a lot of information and, oh, here's my CV. Oh, can you look at all this information, please? People are busy. So you just, a quick knock on the door. Hello, here I am. Can I connect with you? And then maybe you would ask for advice, then assistance, perhaps. Advocacy would be when someone's known you for a long time, like your supervisor, but other people around you who would be able to advocate for you. And then you may even form alliances, with people in the long term. You might end up collaborating or working with them in some way. So it's a stepwise thing. And I've got some examples here. So you might say, oh, dear doctor or dear whoever, don't be too informal. If you don't know the person and maybe they're a professional, I would always err on the side of caution and call someone doctor or professor or Mr. or Mrs., whatever it might be. And then they can say, hey, call me Jim, then that's okay. I met you recently at a conference where we discuss, I would like to link with you and stay in touch. So you could do that even during a conference. Say, oh, we were talking this morning and I just thought I'd, link with you. or I'm a PhD student at this university looking to move into industry. Can I link with you, etc. So it's a very short thing. And what I would say is you need to have your profile up and running, up to date with a picture, with a title and a little description. Because what I find is that if people try to link with me and I don't see a face, I don't see a title, I don't see a description of who they are, I just ignore it. So you need to make sure that you attend to that first before you reach out to connect. And then if they connect with you, you can say, "Oh, thank you so much for linking with me. I'm about to complete my PhD. I wonder if you have any advice." I put an example here of regulatory affairs. I wonder if I could ask you a couple of questions. Would you mind if I ask you? And then people, if they're on LinkedIn, they can be quite amenable. If you say at your convenience, can I have a quick chat with you? People are usually very kind, and it's a bit like being at a conference. Some people are more amenable to talking than others, and you just have to ignore the ones that ignore you. And some people don't really check their LinkedIn either. So don't take it personally if people don't reply. Just move on. There's plenty to choose from. So you must prepare as much as you can and do your research, because if you do connect with these people, they may be giving you what is effectively a mini interview, because whatever you want to talk about, remember, they may have questions for you. Oh, I'm really pleased that you're interested in our company. Why is that? So you need to have done your preparation, and also don't ask them the obvious questions, and try to sort of, just create a nice rapport, and, think about your pitch, your profile. And obviously that's what we did in slides 15 to 22. So you need to go back and review that. But here, this is a nice little. I think this was on LinkedIn, or it might have been on Twitter. But this guy, he's reached out and he's putting his example of an email that he sent out to people. It was a cold email, so he was just connecting with people, asking if he could schedule an informational interview with them to learn more about their work. And he got lots of replies, and he was very much, not ignored, and it was very helpful for him. So he's putting this on here to help you guys, which is what it's all about. It's people being friendly and supportive. So just to also say, if you are going to send an email, put a signature in there. Because again, I get these emails from people and they just put their name at the bottom and I don't know who they are. So you're entitled to have your name, PhD student or PhD researcher. You can put your department in there, your university. You can use the logo of your university, and it makes you look more professional that way. And if you've got a LinkedIn or whatever other connections you can put in there, then pop them into your email. But going back to those informational interview preparation, this is a bit of a checklist here. And as Benny was saying earlier, you are being bombarded tonight with quite a lot of information and slides. But the key thing is it's being recorded. So do go back, and at your leisure, you can go through them and you can pick out things, and you can go back, when the time is right. So, just I wanted to give you as much information as I could in the time that we had, so that you will have this and can use it in the future. But just think about these checklists and how you might speak to somebody, when you meet them in person. You don't immediately jump in and ask them very specific, long-winded questions. You take it step by step. And then remember, they've only got so much time. So be aware and wind things up. And, don't, as I say, ask obvious questions. Ask questions that you can't find on the internet, like how did you make the transition, or what was the most difficult thing to transition from PhD to industry, or what were the surprises, or what's your average day like? Those sorts of questions. Okay, and I'll just go back to the what I was saying about networking, because there are advantages to it, and they definitely outweigh the disadvantages, which is all the emotional stuff where you feel a bit worried, you feel a bit fearful, you're worried you might create a bad impression. On LinkedIn and on any social media, I would say stay away from any controversial subjects, just keep it factual, just keep it as a social network. And it can be time consuming. So don't spend too much time. And remember, whenever you are in your comfort zone here and you are trying to go into the learning and the growth zone, you have to go through the zone of fear. And it's the same, with all the transitions that we make. You were probably a bit fearful before you started your PhD or before you started your university or before you started learning a new technique. We all have that little bit of fear of failure. So, try to get through that and come out the other side into this learning and growth area. So, um, so here we are. Prepare, do your research, and believe in yourself. Okay, so we're on to the final question and answer. I think we've got a few minutes left.
Yes, exactly. But I think it's been extremely helpful. And I really like all the tips you gave about informational interviews. I've used them myself when I transitioned from doing research to
Mm.
a career in, PhD career and professional development. And it's been super helpful. People are really into supporting others. And the worst thing that can happen is that people just don't answer to your request. So it's a low risk, I think, kind of approach to reach out to folks and ask for information. And it's really a cool opportunity if you can leave the conversation with some names of other folks you can connect with. Um, so yeah, thank you so much for giving all these pieces of advice, Sarah. I don't think we have any questions in the chat. We do have some nice comments from people saying that they enjoyed your presentation. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. It's been super helpful.
Thanks, Benny. I'll just then, if there aren't any more questions, then I'll just finish with this summary about, first of all, you've got to recognize and value your strengths to, enhance your confidence, self-belief, and then create a powerful online profile and be visible and active on social media. But you don't have to be on it all the time, but it's a good thing to be present there. Harnessing the power of AI and social media will enhance your job search, but remember, it is only your assistant. And remember also, careers are not static, and nor are you. So, take a flexible approach to your career planning. And on that note of AI, I asked AI to create me an image that goes with the title of this and the theme of this workshop. And this is what it came up with. So it looks all very swirly around and gives you a sense of serendipity and dynamism, things changing all the time. So that's my final slide. I wish you career success. I've left some of my contact details there, but I'm very happy to have contributed again to your PhDOOC and Bene. It's fantastic online course. It's excellent.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. It's been a wonderful conversation and webinar. And thank you to all of you who joined us via YouTube as well. Thank you for being engaged, for asking questions. I hope you enjoyed this webinar and that you feel ready to move on to the third unit of the MOOC. I think now you have a lot of ways that you can craft your career plan and apply some of the amazing tips Sarah has shared with us. And actually, studies have shown that people who have a career plan feel happier about their choices and make more meaningful career decisions. So I hope that you will really enjoy this module and that it will be helpful for you. Please keep on engaging with one another on the MOOC platform. You are the ones that make the MOOC alive. So please engage, do the activities, let us know if you have any questions. And I wish you all the very best with planning your career. And thank you, Sarah, for joining.